Alrighty guys, so this is our last lesson before our final, well I guess, final assessment. Um, and it's going to be focused on graphing. Remember, it's not really how to graph, it's more about can you recognize it and see what stuff happens to it. So first things first, let's look at a couple of formulas here. Some key ones, we got our asymptote formula down there that x is the opposite of h. We cannot forget that. Okay, so you know, there's each letter represents something. So if you have an a in front of your log, that a, whatever number that is, if it's bigger than 1, it stretches your graph out. If it's between 0 and 1, it makes it shrink. And then if it's negative, it reflects over the x-axis. Okay, and then finally your translation. So you have your horizontal movement, which is h, which it's always been since first semester. And then of course your vertical movement, which is k. Again, same thing since the first semester. Okay, you can see there's some other formulas up top there, so you can see that's an exponential form, which we've done before. Okay, so first things first here, let's talk about what we got to do. Okay, first thing is I want to identify my asymptote. So in this case, my asymptote is at 0. Okay, so that's this line here. All right, so what we're doing, okay, is we're going to make sure when we talk asymptotes, we don't cross those. Okay, so those are like you get as close as you can, but you can't touch it. All right, that's what an asymptote is. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically be switching my x and y's position. What it looks like is the base goes here, the x goes there, and the y goes here. Okay, so that's how that is. All right, so what's going to happen now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make my little chart. Okay, I'm going to use 0, 1, 2 for my x's, and then all I'm doing is plugging them in. So if I do that, 2 to the 0 power is 1. Okay, excuse me. 2 to the first power is 2, and 2 to the second power is 4. Now because I switched my x and my y, I have to switch it back. So when I graph it, my points are actually the opposites of what you see. So instead of 0, 1, it's actually 1, 0. Okay, so this is a weird one, but you have to remember for logs, you flip-flop your points. Okay, so again, 1, 0 would be here. Okay, 2, 1 is here, and 4, 2 is here. Okay, and then you go ahead and you just draw your graph. And usually, well, this is actually how log graphs look. They kind of look like a little curve. Okay? Same process for the next one. Okay, first step, always identify where your asymptote is or where your shift is, depending on what we're doing. But right now, it's just asymptotes. Okay, so in this case, my asymptote, again, happens at 0. So I go ahead and draw that down. All right, I'm going to make my little chart again. Going to go ahead and flip-flop my x and my y. So that gives me this when I do that. All right. Again, 0, 1, 2. All right. So when I do this, again, plugging in 0 gives me 1. Plugging in 1 gives me 3. Plugging in 2 gives me 9. So I'm going to go ahead and write this out. 0, 1, 1, 3. I'm sorry. Remember to switch, because I always forget that. That's my biggest pet peeve with these is I will forget to switch them. So make sure you don't make that mistake. Go ahead and switch. And 9, 2. You'll notice if you don't switch them, your graphs will get all messy. So you want to make sure that you shift and switch them. All right. Again, here we are again. I know this is kind of tedious, but find your asymptote. Remember that asymptote is the opposite of h. Well, there's not an h, so the asymptote is just at 0. It's a vertical asymptote. Okay, go ahead, make your chart. Switch your x and your y, so you have 4 to the x over y. I'm sorry, is equal to y. Okay, 0, 1, 2. All right, plug in 0, 1, 4, 16. Go ahead, switch your points. So 1, 0, 4, 1, and 16, 2. Okay, so if I'm graphing this, obviously I can only graph the first 2 points. So Let's see, 1, 0 is here, and 4, 1 is here. Then obviously 2, 16 is too far away to graph, so we're just going to go ahead and kind of fudge it. So there you go. So that's without any shifts. That's how those graphs look. With a shift. Now doing this with a shift is a little special, okay? So the first thing, again, identify your asymptote. So in this case, my asymptote is the opposite of h. So h is -2 here. The opposite would be a +2. That means to me that my graph will shift right to 2 spots, okay? So when I do this, I'm going to kind of ignore this -2 to start, and then we'll deal with it at the end. So switch your x and your y. Okay, go ahead and make your chart. 0, 1, 2. Okay, if I do this, this is 1, this is going to be 6, and this will be 36. Now, when I flip-flop, I have 1, 0, I have, excuse me, 6, 1, and I have 36, 2. Well, obviously 36, 2 is not useful to us, okay, but the first 2 points are, so we're going to focus on these two. Now, what we need to notice is we have to shift this right 2, so our asymptote's no longer at 0, our asymptote is at 2. So what I have to do is I have to take this shift to the right. Now remember, horizontal movement is x, so what I'm going to do is I am literally going to take my x coordinates of these and shift them to the right 2. So 2 above 1 is 3, and 2 above 6 is 8. Okay? So there's your horizontal shift. So 3, 0 will be my first point, and 8, 1 will be my second point. So there you go. Okay, so you deal with the shift at the end. It'll make your life so much easier. Let's do another one. So again, identify what your asymptote is. My asymptote is at -3. So that means what I'm doing is my asymptote is over here. Okay, so again, ignore that 3. Okay, so that was a left 3 shift. So now ignore that 3 and go ahead and make your chart. Okay, we've already filled one out like this, so we can go ahead and do that. Flip-flop your points. Okay, now because we have a shift left 3, basically what I'm doing is, again, it's just a left shift. So I'm looking just at my x column, and I'm subtracting 3 from it. So 1 minus 3 is -2. 3 minus 3 is 0. And of course, 9 minus 3 is 6. Okay, so there you go. Alright, so if I do this, -2, 0 is my first point. Okay, 0, 1 is my second. And 6, 2 is my third. So let's see, 2, 4, 6. Okay, I go ahead and I draw my arrow. All right, nice and simple. Okay, when you get a double shift, such as this one, okay, there's 2 left, and hopefully we can knock these out. When you get a double shift, all right, you have to pay attention to both of them. First thing, again, identify your asymptote, opposite of h. So it's +1. So here's my asymptote. All right. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to realize that I have a right shift of 1, and I have an up shift of 3. So there's 2 shifts. So in this case, now I'm not just focused on the x, I'm actually focused on the y. But what I'm going to do still to fill out my chart is I'm going to ignore everything after. I'm just going to go ahead and use the normal to make my chart, so that way we're not stressing ourselves out. Okay, so to the 0 power is 1, as always, same squared. Okay, flip-flop. Oops, come on now. 1, 0, 2, 1, and oops, I ran out of space. 2, I'm sorry, 4. Why did I run out of space here? Let's rewrite this on the bottom. So let's go ahead and go 1, 0, 2, 1, and finally 4, 2. Okay. All right. Now, because I have a right and an upshift, I have to add to both columns. The right left goes with the X column. The up down goes with the Y column. So in this case, my excuse me, my right one shift would just be +1 to the X. So +1 to the X would be 2. Okay. And then up means +3, so +3 to the Y. Okay. Again, +1 to the X, +3 to the Y. +1 to the X, +3 to the Y. Okay, so these are my points now. All right, so 2, 3. So let's see here. 1, 2. I'm sorry, 2, 1, 2, 3. So there's my first point. 3, 4. Second point, and 5, 5. Wow, this is a nice tight graph here. Woo. All right, so there you go. Here's your graph for that one, for that shift. Okay, and then I don't know if I'll have enough time to get through this last one, so we'll just try to go as far as you can. Identify the asymptote. Okay, see your shifts. So it's left 3 and down 4, and you would go ahead and follow the same steps. I'm not going to have time to get through this one, so I apologize, guys, but that's just what it is. See if you can graph it on your own. Maybe check yourself out. See if you can match your points and do stuff like that. All right, adios.